don't know if I was convinced, but one of the reasons I was leaning towards believing that Justin Trudeau was going to stick around, at least a while ago, was because of the carbon tax. Because I believed that if he knows that he has an uphill battle in beating Pierre Poilievre, and he knows that if Pierre Poilievre wins the next election on day one, the tax is history. And it's the defining achievement of his government. And so if he'd thrown the party into a leadership race, one of the quickest ways for these guys to differentiate themselves from Justin Trudeau would be to say, vote for me. When I become prime minister, I'm going to axe the tax. I'll find a different way to fight climate change. And that's why I thought he would stick around. Well, he's not sticking around. And so now the question is a real one. It's not hypothetical anymore. What happens if one of these candidates, in order to differentiate themselves from this government and the legacy of this government, decides that they are going to stand up against one of the very initiatives that they voted for? Joining us now is Kris Sims, the Alberta director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Kris, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Do you think there's a possibility that one of the new leader of the party, in order to give themselves a fighting chance, could dump the carbon tax in order to differentiate themselves from Justin?
You know, I can't even imagine a Liberal Party candidate leader sticking with the carbon tax at this point. Aside from, a hardcore zealot like Stéphane Guilbeault, those kind of middle-of-the-road members of parliament would be crazy to not distance themselves in a second from the carbon tax. In fact, I'm expecting one of the first words out of the mouths of these new leadership candidates, maybe even this week, Ben, will be, you know what? We tried that. It didn't work. I'm scrapping the carbon tax. We'd like them to do it now.
Yeah.
We'd like them to announce it now.
Yeah. We know that Pierre Poilievre has been beating the axe the tax drum for a while, but over at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, I have to assume that you've got a longer list of tax issues with this Liberal government. It doesn't just begin and end with the carbon tax.
No, for sure. So the carbon tax is the big one because, to your point, it's the folks who are filling up their minivans, which cost them $13 extra, their pickup trucks, $20 extra, heating your home here in Alberta. It's costing the average Alberta household more than $400 extra this winter just in the carbon tax to heat their home. Yeah. So it is a huge one for us. We're also keeping an eye on the capital gains tax increase, which is affecting a lot of people. Some of the Liberal government were trying to say, oh, well, it only affects people who own yachts. No, if you have a parent who passes away and now you have a secondary property in your possession, people are worried about getting nailed there. Mm-hmm. It also hits physicians very hard in the way that they've structured their retirement years. There's a lot of issues with capital gains. Yeah. Business owners who are trying to sell equipment. So yeah, there are a lot of tax issues for sure, but it's the carbon tax which has this layering effect because, of course, it affects farmers and truckers. So I'm expecting the majority, frankly, of the Liberal Party leadership candidates to distance themselves from the carbon tax.
Now, if we assume that Pierre Poilievre forms the next government, becomes prime minister, how does he unwind the financial damage that's been done? What's the most effective, most responsible pathway back to balance in terms of the money, the revenue that's coming into the government?
Great question. So quick Coles notes there. The quickest way for them to get back to balance is for them to go back to their projected Trudeau government spending in 2021, 2022. So you can go to our website, taxpayer.com. There's like a 70-page report in there of exactly how to balance the budget. And what was remarkable is that they don't need to go super duper austerity. They just need to go back to their projected level of Trudeau-era spending from 2021-22. And so that's the quick answer. Yeah, but the longer answer. Go ahead.
Well, but Kris, this will be a government with different priorities, right? So they have committed to a more robust military, more border security, more security at our ports. I mean, when I hear that only 1% of all shipping containers are even opened up, Like that. Okay, well, I'd prefer that to be closer to 90%. That's a lot of manpower. That's a lot of training. That's a lot of new material. Like it costs a lot to build up the military. It costs a lot to, at some point there's going to be another conversation about equalization. There's going to be another conversation about healthcare for the payments. There's a lot of money that's going to need to be injected into different priorities.
Yes, exactly. And they're able to do that. I think sometimes because we've got so used to it, especially during the Trudeau government years, in that they have doubled the national debt. Yeah. In 9 years, they've doubled the national debt. I think even those of us who are keen political observers have lost track of how outrageous this government's spending habits are. Like, remember ArriveCan? Yeah. ArriveCan was supposed to cost, that app in cost went from $80,000 to $54 million. Yeah. That is an increase of 67,000%.
It's sort of like the...
that's just one example. That's just one.
Watch the pennies and the dollars take care of themselves sort of thing. What's the Canadian Taxpayers Federation opinion on something like returning the GST to 7%? Seems to me that's a quick and easy lift. Billions of dollars coming into the coffers. People were used to paying it. Bring that back. Get rid of the carbon tax. Bring back the GST at 7%. What are your thoughts on that?
I can't imagine the Taxpayers Federation being huge fans of that. You might remember that we started back in 1990. And that was largely in opposition to the GST. So I can't imagine our supporters being in favor of that. The issue here is that they have a spending problem. Yeah. Government has got an enormous spending problem. That example I gave you for ArriveCan is just that one example. Remember, even the Phoenix Pay system, which is the software that manages pay for federal government workers, went into billions with a B dollars.
And the consultants. The consultants. My God, the consultants.
So I understand where you're saying of, how are we going to afford this? Oh my gosh, there is so much wasteful spending that goes on where they are able to cut. And when it comes back to something like the carbon tax, they're just not going to be able to afford not to cut it. Yeah. Just keep in mind, just think about this. Like you and I have spent so much time up on Parliament Hill. Imagine they're coming back after their leadership race. They sit in the House of Commons, end of March. Bam, they're into either a throne speech or the supply motion vote, which is a money vote. They lose confidence. In that window, guess what comes next? April 1st, carbon tax increase. Yeah. Imagine being that new government leader. If I just lost confidence, I'm going to go door knocking, and here's your carbon tax increase.
Yeah, Kris, it feels like the way this has been set up and the timing of it, it's the worst of all worlds for this new Liberal leader. Because, and let's not forget, they will be dealing, if we take Trump at his word, they will be dealing with a world where we're paying 25% tariffs, or others are paying 25% tariffs on everything coming into the States.
It is really a perfect storm. And so this is where, I think coming right out of the gate, that the majority of these Liberal leadership candidates are going to say, we tried the carbon tax and it sure didn't work. It cost people way too much money. We're not meeting our emissions goals. Let's scrap this thing altogether. It would be a really smart move for this Liberal government to do that and for Liberal leadership candidates to do it. Because keep in mind that we've had already a summer where all these Liberal MPs are getting their ear chewed off by their constituents,
Kris,
saying, look at my heat bill,
Kris, we got to leave it there, but thank you so much. I hope you join us again sometime soon.
You betcha. Great show. Thanks, Ben.